Okay. So we're now being recorded, just to let everybody know.
Okay. Is there anybody, I know that we have Beth. Has anybody else joined us?
Tanya Spencer.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Tanya. It's Aurora.
Hi.
And
nice to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Tanya, remind me, where are you calling from?
I'm in California in a little mountain town called Tehachapi.
Ooh, wow. What's it like there right now?
Well, it's sunny with a few clouds in the sky, but we've got a good rainstorm coming. It'll be raining for the next 4 days, so
my gosh.
Looking forward to that.
I know your rain is precious.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm waiting because I suspect more people will be joining us.
Yes, yeah.
And give them
How was everybody's Valentine's Day?
Mine was wonderful.
Yeah, very nice.
Very nice.
When the bell rings, does that mean somebody just joined?
It should.
Oh, yes, I just did. This is Moira.
Hi. Who's joined us?
This is Moira.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. I wasn't sure I was going to make it, so I'm kind of proud of myself for getting here.
We're just giving folks a few minutes to start chiming in. We'll probably have a few more. And we'll get started. Why don't I go ahead and get started here now? And let's see, just hitting my one second, and I'll be ready here on this end. Got a little technology thing I'm working. Okay, and we've got a couple more people joining us. This is Debbie, Dr. Debbie Norris, and Aurora Hutchinson is also on the phone with us. And welcome to the students who are joining us as well. Today's topic for conversation is words as energy and how we choose words with the intention to shift energy of those who might be listening to us. And to start the perspective, I would like to consider what physicists are now saying they understand about that everything is energy, that what we used to think of as mass versus energy, that we now understand that everything has an energetic quality to it. And we tend not to speak much about energy in our culture. We don't have a lot of words around it, especially when you compare our language to other languages. For example, in Sanskrit, when they speak of pranayama, they have all different kinds of concepts of energy and ways of describing how energy moves around and through and within the human body and other bodies. Chinese medicine also had quite a few ways of languaging concepts of energy. And we do have some ways of languaging it in our language and our culture, but we don't tend to pause and think about that very much. For example, when we say somebody is radiant or vibrant or I get a good vibe, the person has nice energy, we don't really have our fingers on what it is we're talking about when we refer to these concepts of energy. But yet when we pause and we think about it from our own personal experience, yes, it makes sense. Sometimes people say something to us and it makes us feel yucky. We feel something shift within, and maybe it feels like a pit in the stomach or it hurts the heart. And other times somebody can say something and it makes us feel wonderful. Obviously, there's other things that can do that. Memories, anticipations, thoughts, seeing something, hearing something can shift our energy. But what I'd like to focus on today is specifically words. As meditation teachers, one of the key tools that we have in teaching the practice are the words that we choose to use in our guidance. And if we at least spend some time today contemplating how specific words impact us, I think as teachers we probably do that every time we utter a sentence in our guidance. Part of our mind is playing that sentence through our own experience of that sentence. How would it sound if I said this? How would it sound if I say that? What's the impact? I know many of us do consider that, and I don't know how many of you write down your meditations before you record them. Do any of you do that?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Then when I'm teaching this in groups of people where I get to interact with them, they write down the guidance and then practice it on someone. For spouse is a key subject to be the subject during all these practice sessions, and get feedback as you draft the meditation. You're reading it, and the feedback is, I like that line, or I don't like that line, or that one made me uncomfortable, or that was really good, can I borrow that line? So we get feedback. What is the basis for that feedback that we're getting? The basis for that feedback is your subject's experience, the qualitative experience of the words that you have shared in your guidance. And so I'd like to pick apart some of the words, some of the key words that come up, to have a discussion between us all here today about some of these, the impact of some of these words. And as we get started in this process. Okay. You're welcome to ask at any time. Just say, excuse me, Debbie, and otherwise you can put your phone on mute, but remember to unmute yourself when you're coming to discuss. And I will just launch in. I've got a list of words here and short phrases to go over. And one of my favorites is the word try. This comes up often as teachers and even as parents and as friends. We're often using the word try, and I'd like us to consider the energy around that word. Where I see it most importantly, not just the meditation guidance, but also in yoga, which I also teach. Because what's the energy around the word try? Try implies a possibility for success, but it also implies a possibility for failure. That what you're going to try to do might not materialize. Indeed, if I were to say to you, if you were to invite me for dinner and I would say, I'll try to make it, you get a pretty good sense that I might not be there, that I'm looking for or considering a way out of it. If, on the other hand, if I said, I'm coming over for dinner, then all of a sudden your focus is, I better have some food. What am I making? What time will you be there? It's on it actually happening. So it's a big difference between suggesting that somebody try to do something versus suggesting that they actually do it. I mentioned that this is very relevant in yoga because you can imagine if you've got somebody balancing precariously on one foot with the other one extended way out in the air and their arms someplace in a twist and so forth, and you say, now try to balance. I guarantee you in that class, people are going to start falling over. If I say, balance there, I get a much better success rate. So when you are suggesting to somebody that they do something, be aware that the word try sets up the potential for failure and can get in the way Now, obviously, there are times when the best we can do is try. And so we have that word in our language. There's a place for it. We can use it. But let's be discriminating about our use. Let's consider the impact. Would it make that yoga student wobble, or would your audience be better served by simply telling them to do it? When I first begin a meditation class and everybody's bustling around and just starting to settle in, I don't say try to make yourself comfortable. I say make yourself comfortable. It's a big difference in terms of the success that I'm going to have. Is this making sense to anybody? Is anybody questioning this or feeling it?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yes, it makes really good sense, Debbie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another concept is the suggestion of the actual failed act. For example, try not to fall over or don't fall over, which I think the most familiar example of that is don't look at the pink elephant in the room. We've probably all heard that cliche because that makes us want to know something about that pink elephant that we're not supposed to be looking at. So directing our attention to that which we do not want to be doing is also something for us to consider the impact of that. I had a personal experience that was rather serious as a result of this. I was in a Taekwondo class, and I'm a dancer. I've done all kinds of physical activity. Taekwondo was interesting in that it was a different technique, but my physical coordination has been pretty good. And in this particular class, I was midair when the instructor said, don't come down with your knee locked, at which point I felt my knee lock, and I came down with my knee locked and blew out my knee big time. The timing was impeccable. The brain hears what you suggest, whether you're suggesting it in a positive or negative. The brain hears, look at the pink elephant. The brain hears, knee locked. Come down with your knee locked. The don't. Obviously, there is, again, a place and a time for telling somebody not to do something. And most relevantly, when they're in the thick of it. But you may want to mute your phone. A more effective strategy is to point out the alternative, the positive alternative that you are looking for. And to validate that there is a place for saying don't, I'll use another example, and that is the pothole in the road. You don't want to hit the pothole in the road, but it does behoove you to know that there is a pothole in the road, and then to find the path around the pothole and focus on that. So, again, our language has come up with a way of referring to the negative, but we want to be conscious as teachers using particularly words in guidance, how to temper the use of that, not use it indiscriminately, not indiscriminately be telling people always what they shouldn't be doing without somehow giving them direction in what they should be doing. And we'll get to the word should in just a moment here, but what our intention is for them to be doing, how we would like to guide them. Any thoughts or questions around the use of the negative versus the positive way suggestion?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, it reminds me of bumper stickers. Stop war or something, and instead of writing, cultivate peace, because I think people, if you start noticing bumper stickers, a lot of them are in the negative, and I think it's achieving the opposite of what the person wants.
Thank you. Yes, it brings our attention to the negative. So we as meditation teachers can be out there rewriting our cultural dictums, our cultural slogans. Here's a wonderful example that really has been on my mind since I first heard it many years ago. No child left behind. A double negative, which if you think about a system, and I think we talked about this in our discussion on education, but if you think about a system designed, an entire country's educational program designed so that no one child would be left behind, it gets us focused on the least performing child in the country and designing an educational system for that child. And so how would we rephrase that so it's not a double negative, so that it is a positive? What's the positive version of no child left behind?
All children move ahead.
Okay, say again. All children moving ahead?
Yeah.
There you go. Love it. Good, love it. All children moving ahead. Every child thrives. That's our education program. Every child thrives. All children moving ahead. There you go. So in hypnosis, which is another strategy for learning verbal guidance and how to use word cueing, it's a very powerful technique to acknowledge the potential negative and then make the positive statement. So if you're working on one-on-one, for example, with a client, and they're coming in really focused on the negative, you don't want to just dismiss the negative. And usually a one-on-one client, especially in hypnosis, will come in focused on something that they do not want. And you can't just dismiss them and say, don't worry about what you do want. Let's just talk about what you do. Don't worry about what you don't want. Let's just talk about what you do want. They'll be driving that point home until you finally hear them. So there is a value to acknowledging the negative, in my example, the pothole, and validating the potential for that, and then suggesting the path around it, the alternative, the solution. We have a saying at the Mindfulness Center, at least I do, a saying at the Mindfulness Center, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. And I think that an example of where you'd experience this, I was just talking with one of you about a large class, a group of people who you have, and you sit down in front of a large group of people, and they've been through the hustle and bustle of getting there, and at least in my classes, when we get started, there's busy-mindedness, there's anxiousness, people have been through the traumas of the week, and they're not all just sitting there in bliss. And so I acknowledge busy-mindedness. I think in meditation we refer to it as the monkey mind. I acknowledge the momentum of thoughts in the mind. And that gives people a sense of peace that allows them to connect with the guidance that I've acknowledged where they're at. Now, if I'm not sure, I can always ask. I walked in on a lecture I was to give recently, and there was about 18 or 20 people sitting there who'd already been meditating for some time when my program began. I wasn't exactly sure where folks were at, but clearly they were not sitting there with busy-minded to have been there for so long. So part of what I do is checking in. where are people at? What's there for you right now? I always know if something serious has hit the news that's on people's minds, and I invite that out so that we can acknowledge where we're at. And if it's interpreted as negative or positive, whatever it is, we want to acknowledge the potential for what people are experiencing and then give the guidance into the meditation. So awareness of the negative way of approaching, don't hit the pothole, don't look at the pink elephant, don't do this, versus the positive, what to do. And that the brain really hears the suggestion, not whether it's negative or positive. So that's a second topic that I wanted to talk about, validating the negative and empowering the positive. Any other questions or thoughts about that, or experiences with that, personal?
Yes, this is Tanya, and the pothole analogy just made me think when my husband and I used to mountain bike ride, we'd go on some really technical trails, and he would always tell me, well, look where you want to go. And I just didn't think it was going to work, but it did every time. And so it's just kind of, I mean, I've known just with the meditations that I've done, the suggestions of the words, it does take my mind there, and I have some really amazing experiences with that. And so, you know, kind of look where you want to go is kind of a nice way to think about it. It's kind of reminding me of that.
I love that line. Look where you want to go. That's beautiful, and obviously so concrete in terms of mountain bike riding, especially very technical riding, and also in life in general. We don't think about our intentions often. We don't visualize where we want to go. Even when I have people come in with specific health needs for either for private meditations or hypnosis, and they're so focused on where they don't want to be. And it's the biggest part of the work is to refocus them on where they do want to be. We're all wrapped up in what we don't like about ourselves, about our culture, about our world, our politicians, and so forth. And yet we don't seem to have a good focus. And what we want to cultivate is a good focus on where we do want to go. Look where we do want to go. Beautiful. Thank you for that. And you might consider in your own life or in those with you're working, where do you want to go? Thank you. Another topic is the one I posted about on our Facebook page, and that is the who versus that concept. Did you have a chance to contemplate that topic, and have you seen it come up in other people's postings, writings, or words? That we refer to people are who. There's a certain quality to who-ness, and when you think of someone as a who, it feels different than when you think of an inanimate object like a that. And I see this a lot. The woman that crossed the street, the baby that was crying, the children that were playing. And that's a very different feeling from the woman who crossed the street, the baby who was crying, the children who were playing. Do you get a sense? How do you describe that difference in that energy? Does anybody have a feel for that? Here's somebody out there.
Are you thinking like the negative energy of being stressed in that moment of the baby crying? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm talking about the difference, not at all about the qualities of baby crying. Maybe I should use a different example. But the essence of a person when we think of them as a who versus the essence of a person when we think of them as a that.
Okay.
The woman who is sitting next to me versus the woman that is sitting next to me.
It's almost like that emotional connection?
Yes. An emotional connection, a vitality, a humanness, a quality or nature of being human that's unique compared to an inanimate object that doesn't necessarily give you any energy back.
Yeah.
Do you feel that?
You're giving an identity, acknowledging that it's an identity.
Yes, and a human quality to that identity.
Yes,
like somebody's name. When you hear your name, it's a powerful thing versus if you hear yourself referred to as that lady.
It's funny. This is Margie. This is Margie, and maybe I have to apologize. I keep having to walk from room to room where there isn't it when I wanted to say something because I'm at the center right now, so now I'm in the hall. But anyway, it's interesting because I felt no difference in emotion or energy or feeling when you first. All I could think is bad grammar. Because that's how I initially reacted, is that it's really not, it is a person, it's not a thing, but thinking, my mother would have corrected me if I had spoken that way. Anyway, so now I just had not thought of it from that perspective.
How would you prefer to, yes, it's bad grammar. When it has a physiological impact, at least I sense it, to be referred to as a woman who versus a woman that.
Yeah. So, and you're right. So maybe I didn't ever think of it. To me, when it's bad grammar, poor grammar, it's like a nails on a chalkboard to me. So I guess it is, and I'm having a visceral, energetic reaction to it.
Mm-hmm. And why is it bad grammar? Why did we come up with these grammatical rules that we refer to people as whos? What is this quality of who-ness that we experience when we're referred to, which we don't experience when we refer to people as that? There's a dryness, a dullness, an inanimate sense when I read about the people that.
To me, this is Joyce Ann Piepenbrink. I'm sorry, I kind of came in last just now. To me, I think about the concept of compassion. So rather than, even if I'm upset about something, rather than saying oh, I'm just crying, it's developing that self-compassion and that almost that, you're developing that awareness of another person and their feelings involved rather than just more surface, and you're just thinking of it as you said, like an inanimate object.
Right.
So I think of the word compassion, and when we can teach, because I work in a school with kids, so we're teaching kids to have compassion not just for themselves,
right,
or not just for other people, but for themselves. So it's you are a who, and your feelings and your positive energy and your actions matter. It's
right.
not just a bunch of people in a building.
There you go. If you drop a doll, it won't be hurt. If you drop a baby, something it will hurt. Something will happen.
Right.
And so we care. We have a greater depth of caring. You're calling it compassion, and that makes so much sense to me, that we have that sense of compassion, connectedness, that word is perfect to sum up the caring that we might have for another person that is embodied in the word who. It implies that compassion. Thank you. That's a beautiful way of saying it. We can have compassion for whos. We don't necessarily have compassion for that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions on who versus...
Hi, this is John. Hi. Yes, this question of who and that is interesting. I think it's interesting because just the word that, as you brought it up, I think the word that is just being used so much more just in all kinds of speech, in all places in speech. And it's a little bit tricky because there are appropriate uses of that. Mm-hmm. Like that's the thing, if you're saying that. So there are appropriate uses, but as the person before talked about grammar, yeah, right, I think when we learned, a lot of us learned when we were younger, most that's can be replaced with which or who. Or whom. And it's all become merged together into just this big that. I think you're right. And as you were saying about it, talking about it, I was also thinking about they, the use of they as opposed to he and she. That if people know their grammar, there's some situations where you should say, when he is doing it or when she is doing it. But it's also become over the years more common. Everyone says they when they're doing it, when they actually mean a he or a she. And I was just thinking of that when you talked about that it's maybe a little bit related, that there's this partly a depersonalization in the language to kind of just generalize they, that does take some specific energy out of the person. And I was thinking of a lot of the political talk now these days, regardless of what someone thinks about a position. A couple phrases came to my head, like the Republicans that say this, the Democrats that say that.
They say that, yeah, and the separation of different groups, yes.
Yeah, but just instead of saying Republicans who say this or Democrats who say that, Republicans who talk about education as opposed to Republicans that talk about education.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just saying in that space right there, the use of that, you're right, is a lot more common as opposed to who or whom. So
and
I
that's
think it is provocative.
Excellent words. For the concept of that is it depersonalizes. Right.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it is correct that you said that.
Thank you. So the use of the word that to refer to humans depersonalizes them, and the use of the word who invites compassion. So thank you, John. Appreciate your input as well. And beautiful, beautiful words to help us to understand why the grammar is the way it is. Another concept, I think I've got time for one or two more here, is the concept of sorry versus thank you. And again, both words that have really critical places in our language, and I know there's many of us have a great appreciation for the correct use of sorry and thank you. Some of us even have issues around those particular words if we haven't heard them enough. But let's contemplate the difference and the place for these two different words. If I say, I'm sorry, who am I talking about? Say I'm talking to another person and I say, I'm sorry. Who am I talking about? Me or the other person?
You.
Yes, I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about my feelings, how I feel, that I feel badly. It is not specifically in just those two words or three words, I am sorry. It's not specifically about the other person, and it's not acknowledging what's going on for them. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry I missed something. I'm sorry. I'm talking about myself. And truly, in our culture, we're a culture longing to have our own feelings heard. And if you've just hurt somebody else's feelings, there is a longing for that other person to also feel heard. So in addition to sorry, which is absolutely an essential cluster of words in our language, when you say thank you, who are you speaking to? Who is the active subject in those two words. Clearly, it's the other person. Now we're talking about their existence, their presence, their feelings. So thank you turns the table and makes it about the other person. So, for example, I might, if say I was late, I might say, I'm sorry I am late. Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for being here now. That, I see, elicits the greatest response. And I believe that sometimes we get these things confused. We say sorry when what we mean is thank you. When we're blocked on expressing gratitude, we say I'm sorry without pausing to show that the other person has done something to go out of their way. Even just by waiting, they've gone out of their way. Maybe they've done something else. See if you can perhaps suggest some examples. Maybe somebody has done something. Oh, I'm sorry you had to do that. Well, they didn't do it to trouble you and make you sorry. They did it to be helpful. They did it to be appreciated. And what they are looking for is thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Is this making sense, the difference? Explore this in your own lives. Look at moments when either thank you or I'm sorry are appropriate, and explore the impact and how you might express gratitude when people go out of their way to do something rather than, I mean, some of us have issues around being sorry, saying sorry, and so forth, rather than getting stuck on just the sorry part, also recognizing the other person's feelings and saying thank you as well. Do any of you have any stories that might help us to?
Well, actually, so without getting too personal here, but my sister and my mom are not talking right now. My sister has 2 little kids, and she lives in Florida. And no one in the family particularly likes her husband because of how he's treated her in the past. P.S. So right now, my mom had actually wrote her in a text message about, how she doesn't come up and visit us, and that the entire family misses her and the kids because we can go years without seeing them. And so my sister is upset because of how my mom kind of called her out on her not visiting everyone and what my mom would do if the scenarios switched. So now they're not talking because my sister says that my mom has to apologize. Yet my mom didn't see where she was wrong. She was just expressing her feelings. So this has kind of been going on for a month. So I'm just trying to think of how my mom can, I guess, choose the words to validate my sister's feelings, yet not say, I'm sorry, because I think my sister's just, you hurt me, and now you need to apologize for it. And I think she's stuck on the word sorry. And so because of this, there's been a month-long gap between the relationship. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you. In this particular case, it sounds like your sister wants your mother to say sorry, and your mother wants your sister to say thank you for reaching out to me in the first place.
Right.
And your mother did try and reach out to her, and they sound a little stuck there. But I think you're right in that if your mother can continue to validate your sister's situation, well, your sister must feel really stuck.
Yeah, so, but it's more of you're just stuck on the word sorry, and I think that people toss that word around not being mindful of what it really means. Because yes. I think you made a really good point about, we're in a culture that we feel like we need to always defend ourselves. And, I'm so sorry that you are feeling this way, but I really didn't mean to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's getting to stop and think about what's really going on in the situation.
in psychotherapy, we recognize that there's 3 elements to a really effective apology. One is that you say you're sorry. The other is that you don't say but. I'm sorry, but. Because, and we'll get to but next, is my last set of words I want to talk about. But negates everything that just came before it. So it completely invalidates the apology. And that you do say something towards the end towards the goal of not doing it again, if that is appropriate. So I'm sorry, and I will try not to do that again, and I will be more aware of your feelings. I'm sorry, and I've learned something from this experience. So, in your mom's case, she might not want to say but. So just a consciousness that there's a place, that where there's a place for sorry, there may also be a place for thank you. And occasionally one is more appropriate than the other, and that occasionally they're also interchangeable. So just an awareness of where gratitude and guilt, especially if guilt gets in the way of gratitude, that's your issue, and you don't want to be putting that on other people. So thank you for your input, and good luck with your mom and your sister. Thank you for the segue into the next set of words, which is but and and. And very simply, as I mentioned, but does negate what came before it. And again, there's a place for that. There is a place for the word but. And when you're hearing this as a recipient of somebody's words, just be aware that it will negate what you've just said in their minds, in their experience of the words, in their energetic shift. So if you said I'm sorry, and somebody's starting to open and relax and feel a bit reassured that you care about their feelings, and then you say but, they close that up, you've just lost the benefit that you were about to gain from your apology, and your recipient will close back up to that. So an alternative is to use the word and. I'm sorry, and, or any other. I'm just using I'm sorry because that's what we've been talking about. It could be I'm looking forward to seeing you, and, versus I'm looking forward to seeing you, but I can't bring you these things, or I can't arrive when you want, versus I'm looking forward to seeing you, and I will see you at such and such a time. Do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. It keeps the momentum moving forward to use the word and. You don't backtrack and effectively delete the sentiment that you may have just expressed prior to the word but. So with these things in mind, I hope these are things that you can incorporate into your languaging, creating positive, affirming languages, phrases that support people in moving towards, what was the saying that you had, somebody offered us, the bicycle ride, the mountain bike riding? Focus on the path you want to take.
Look where you want to go.
Look where you want to go. Yes, that we can use this phrasing to guide people where they want to go. When you do your one-on-one work, I'm just writing this down, look where you want to go. When you do your one-on-one work with people, it's really good to know where they want to go. It's hard to guess. Don't guess. If you're not sure, if you don't have a feel for it, ask. To some extent, you can also do this with groups of people. They might not necessarily all want to go the same place. Many will want to relax. Many will want to slow down, but not everybody. But it's good to at least get a feel for it. So to the extent that you sit down and you begin to guide and you're not sure what to do, it's simple. You just ask. Then there's a great sense of confidence and assurity and inspiration that comes over you when you know where somebody wants to go or a group wants to go, and you get to take them there. So focus on looking where you want to go. Thank you. Any more questions or input or thoughts on these phrases and uses of words? Any
Hello.
other?
Debbie, hi. It's John one more time.
Yes,
the but and that is really interesting that you brought that up, because I just found myself the last few months or so trying to become more aware of that in writing emails or text messages, and I think you're really onto something with that. And when I focus on it, I start to realize, right, that I and a lot of other people use the word but far too often. And I've tried to think about what's behind that. And I think, for myself at times, I think I've noticed when I put it in there, I have consciously or unconsciously become worried about, have I offended someone with what I just said? And so I need to qualify it. Or am I trying to protect them or myself from any disagreement by using that construction? I've noticed that when I focused on it. And so I found myself trying to constantly pull out buts, to pull them out. And like you said, often the word and works just as well. And it does feel more positive when I switch it out. I've noticed that. And the only other thing I would say is it seems to me when I focus on it more that I realize if I feel pretty clear I have said something in disagreement, right? I guess it's partly and it can be partly an acknowledgement. If someone has said to you, I really don't like this, or I'm really worried about this, or something. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes it's an acknowledgement back saying, I understand what you're saying, or I heard what you're saying. So to me, I think it's partly acknowledgement that I might not see it the way he or she sees it by using the but it's made me think about it more. So I think you're really onto something with that.
Thank you. And John, it's a skill for us to learn to construct sentences just the way we want them. And obviously when we're writing guided meditations, we have the leisure of pondering them and rewriting them and so forth. Even in leading meditation, I notice I usually speak a little slower because I work on the word construction in my mind before it comes out my mouth sometimes. However, every once in a while, it comes out wrong. For example, I might say, I like what you just said, but, and then I realize, that's not the way I want to say it. Just say it again and say, what I mean to say is, I like the way what you just said, and it seems to work. It's the best we can do. We're mortals. We won't always say things perfectly. Just edit it out loud. You've just said to somebody, but, and you meant to say and. Just retract that phrase and say it again correctly, and then it'll improve things considerably. So as we get used to phrasing and becoming more aware of the sentiment, the energy of the words we're speaking, we can rewrite them even as they flow from our mouths. Another one you brought me to think about, and I'll mention just quickly, is saying no when we mean yes. I have friends I speak to, and I'll say something, and they'll go, no, I know exactly I understand what you're saying. And everything I say, they respond, no is the first word out of their mouth. And I have to wonder, I don't even understand that energy, but perhaps you may have encountered a friend who does that as well. Even in agreement, they'll say, no, you're right, it is that way. I'm like, what's that no doing there? So if you are someone who is inclined to speak that way, just be aware if you start a conversation with the word no, what is that saying about your energy? And John, the final thing that you brought to my mind is the concept of mirroring, which is a bit pedantic. It can be pedantic if you do it precisely, if you just simply mirror everything everybody says. Some way of recognizing and validating what people are saying and letting them know that you heard what they said as you then proceed can avoid a lot of arguments. Oftentimes people will simply say what they've been saying over and over again because they don't feel heard. And as soon as you're able to validate what they're saying, in some way mirroring it back to them, then they feel heard and the conversation can progress. And if any of you have done any couples work or couples therapy, you know this is a key element in improving relationships, is taking the time, speaking a little more slowly, and taking the time to validate other people's feelings as they share them before you move on to your feelings and take the floor. That said, I'll pause for any other comments, and then...
Did you say that you... Oh, I'm sorry. I just said it. Did I interrupt someone?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Did you say that you had some information as far as how the brain, I guess, processes, you know, when somebody hears something negative, like what happens on that neurological level? Did you say you...
I didn't say anything in reference to what's happening in the brain, at least not a reference where it's been searched specifically. I think that I might have, what I meant to reference was general knowledge, that what we hear is the negative. But that would be interesting. I'll keep an eye out for any research. The general knowledge is that the brain hears what we're suggesting, but doesn't hear don't do this or do that. It just hears, if you say don't look at the pink elephant, the brain hears let's look at the pink elephant. And it sets up this internal struggle not to.
Okay.
But I don't have a specific reference for that. Thank you. And somebody else did have a comment. So, is there another person there?
Yes, this is Tanya, and I just wanted to thank you for this. Words are so powerful, and it's just, you've really given me some good stuff to think about and contemplate. You know, even just talking with my friends or my children, and I've never really thought about it like this before, so thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for saying
thank you. As always. As always.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, enjoy, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Debbie.